We're going to dive into a really unusual story today. It's a deeply personal account of a memory that, well, it seems like it didn't even belong to this life. It's a story about a fear that lasted a lifetime, these haunting dreams, and a single discovery that changed absolutely everything. From the moment he learned to speak, he was afraid of water. Just think about that for a second. The fear was there right from the very beginning, with no obvious reason why. And it wasn't just any water, not rivers, not rain. It was only deep water, an instinctual, gut-level dread of the deep, dark sea. And this really puzzled his parents, because there was no incident, no trauma in his childhood that could explain it. None at all. He describes it as this physical thing. Whenever he'd see the ocean, his chest would tighten up, his hands would start to shake. It was this visceral, overwhelming reaction. A feeling so profound it felt almost borrowed, like it didn't belong to him. So as he got older, this unexplained fear, it started to evolve. It wasn't just a feeling anymore. It began to surface when he was asleep, as these fragmented memories from what felt like a completely different life. And these weren't clear stories, not at first. They were just these powerful sensory fragments, the sound of violent crashing waves, the really distinct smell of smoke mixed with salt, and then the terrifying physical sensation of lungs burning underwater. He'd wake up gasping for air, his heart pounding. Slowly, over time, these sensory bits and pieces started to come together. He began to realize that in these dreams, he wasn't himself. He was seeing through someone else's eyes. He was an older man standing on a wooden deck, and there was just panic all around him. And then a couple more crucial details started to emerge from the chaos. There was fire, an explosion, and people were screaming a name he didn't recognize when he was awake, but in the dream, he knew, somehow, that it was his. So for years, this was just his reality. This lifelong fear he couldn't explain, and this recurring nightmare that made no sense. But then, one day, a completely random discovery would bring this whole mystery into, well, startling focus. Years later, he was just scrolling online one day, not really looking for anything in particular, and he stumbled on an article. It was about a passenger ship that had caught fire and sunk in a storm, decades before he was even born. And for some reason he couldn't explain, he just felt this pull to click on it. As he started reading this historical account, this cold feeling just washed over him. The descriptions in the article, they were just too familiar. The storm, the fire, the widespread panic, the darkness of the sea, it mirrored the scenes from his dreams with this chilling accuracy. The article had an old black and white photograph of some of the passengers on the ship's deck, and as he scanned the image, his eyes just locked onto one person in the crowd, a man looking right into the camera. That face was mine. The feeling was just immediate, dizzying. It was him. Now, not a perfect carbon copy, of course. The clothes, the hairstyle, they were from another time, but the resemblance was absolutely undeniable.
And it wasn't just a passing resemblance, It was the small things, the details, the eyes, the shape of the nose, and the most compelling thing of all, a small scar above the man's eyebrow, in the exact same spot he has one.
Well, this discovery was a massive turning point. After seeing that photo, the whole nature of his dreams changed, completely. The fear and confusion he'd felt for so long, it was replaced by a sense of clarity. And finally, acceptance. He had one last dream about the shipwreck, but this time, it wasn't a nightmare. It just played out like a memory. He remembered calmly realizing that the fire had blocked the exits, and all the lifeboats were gone. He remembered jumping into the freezing water, the shock of the cold, the struggle to stay afloat, to breathe. And then he remembered the final moment. When he woke up from that final, clear dream, the fear was gone. The fear he had carried his entire life had just vanished. After decades of anxiety around deep water, there was just this profound sense of peace. The story, it seemed, finally had an ending. So driven by this newfound curiosity, he did one last search. He found the official passenger list from the shipwreck, and on it, he found a name, with the same initials as his own. And get this, the man had the same birthday, the same month, the same day. And his cause of death was listed as drowning at sea. Now, he doesn't present any of this as scientific proof of anything. It's not about that. Instead, he just offers this reflection. He simply knows that his fear wasn't learned from a book, and his memories didn't come from a movie. He believes his story started long before he was ever born. You know, the experience wasn't just about uncovering some past trauma. It was about resolving a present one. And it leaves us with this really compelling question. Maybe we carry these echoes of past lives not to remember who we were, but to understand who we are now?